Well, let's stay with the fire at Parliament because it's been about 4 years now since Parliament fired its former head of security, Zelda Holtzman. Now, this has raised further questions about the preparations and implementation of security plans at Parliament ahead of the fire on Sunday. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, says she's been briefed that a process had been going on as recently as December to try and fill the post permanently. Joining us to talk about the threat to one of our democracy's most important institutions tonight is the Institute for Security Studies expert, Jackie Cilliers. Jackie, a very good evening to you. Welcome to News at Prime. So it's been, 3 days now since this fire broke out. A lot has happened. What sort of security red flags jump out at you as someone who works in this space?
I think that events in Parliament have illustrated once again that our security agencies are in a dire state. For more than a decade, former President Zuma packed and loaded the security cluster with people that have loyalty to him. And the result is a system, whether you're speaking of intelligence, police, defense, that really is packed with party loyalists and where competence is not rewarded. And of course, this is part of a broader trend in South Africa where the rush towards representativity has completely overawed the challenge of appointing competent people that come through the ranks, for example, within the security establishment. And then we have extremely rigid labor legislation in South Africa that makes it very difficult to hire and fire. You can't hold anybody to account within a few months. Every process takes months or even years. And this whole issue of temporary appointments and holding people under a temporary appointment has been used to great advantage in years prior to President Ramaphosa joining. He is trying to push back on this and trying to separate the civil service from the ruling party, but given the policy of cadre deployment, very, very difficult. So we are going to this year, I think, pay a bit of a price for this neglect. This is a year in which we head to the ANC's elective conference in December of 2022, and similar to what happened in 2017, that is going to be accompanied by significant turbulence. The factional infighting within the ANC has spilled into the street and literally now threatens all of us. And that instability, at a time when our security institutions have been captured previously, but have not been redone, presents South Africa with significant challenges, I think. So we'll have to hold on to our chairs in 2022.
And I wanted to get your thoughts on something else that's been troubling the issue of surveillance at Parliament on the night that we're told that Zandile Mafe broke in, stole, and started this fire. We're told the CCTV cameras were working, but no one was manning them. That raises red flags too, I'd imagine, as far as the importance of the institution and the fact that any sort of surveillance would be left unattended for whatever period of time. Or am I missing something?
Yes, it just simply reflects the fact that our systems of accountability, discipline don't work, and that is true of literally all the security agencies today. We have established a culture in this country of lack of accountability, particularly if you're from the ruling party, and this, together with cadre deployment, has really presented South Africa with a challenge where, in a sense, the chickens are coming home to roost. And money is often not the problem. If you look at what's happened with the police budget, of course, it's more than doubled in the previous decade until a few years ago. And yet the police face significant challenges. And many of those challenges relate to the appointment to political appointments or the lack of appointment of capable people to senior positions in a permanent capacity. And this is where we are, and we're going to struggle in 2022 because of not a lack of money, but a lack of care, a lack of management, a lack of competence.
Zelda Holtzman, the now former head of security at Parliament, was sacked in 2017. She'd been suspended by then for about 2 years. There was internal drama. She says she was being ill-treated and pushed out because she wouldn't go ahead or toe the line, as it were, internally. That's since been settled between Parliament and Holtzman, I understand, a few years ago, in fact, when that was settled. But to the issue of an absence of a permanent head of security for Parliament, how much does that leave the institution exposed?
Oh, it leaves it hugely exposed. It's the most important, probably symbolically, institution in South Africa. And yet we have a situation where some of the systems apparently work, but there's nobody that monitors them, the CCTV cameras. And this, again, is the issue. If you don't have somebody permanent that looks after this, we don't have, as far as I know, a permanent person, the secretariat that chairs the secretariat in Parliament. And there are many of these examples. Recently, we had a finding that made it clear that something like 36%, if I'm correct, of senior officials in government are not qualified for their job. You can't run a modern economy this way. You can't run a capable state. You can forget about a developmental state if you're not prepared to appoint career persons and capable persons, not because of political loyalty, but because of their competence. And this is, again, what's happened in Parliament.
The one concern that also comes to mind is that once there has been a breach of security, at least by the version that we're hearing now, where a lone man who doesn't appear, at least from what we've heard, to have been a sophisticated criminal of any kind, but was able to gain entry by the law enforcement version into Parliament, take some property, then set the building alight. It makes you wonder if this will not then encourage other criminals or people who are in fact criminals and specialize in breaking in and theft to do the same, not just at Parliament, but other public buildings.
Well, the destruction of South Africa's infrastructure and national property, from roads to rails, is a national sport. We used to have the best infrastructure in Africa by a long stretch. But a lot of that infrastructure is no longer holding together. It's lack of maintenance, lack of competent people, lack of accountability. So I think what's happening in the rest of South Africa maybe is caught up with Parliament. Because the one thing, of course, that, for example, that is not being cut is the VIP protection and the way in which our politicians protect and fund agencies to look after themselves. And that's the one budget within the police that's absolutely gone through the roof. And these are the issues that we really need to focus on. Parliament has been absent during the period of state capture. And the realities that the rest of the country experience has now come to Parliament with devastating consequences for South Africa. At a time when economically, politically, we are in a difficult situation. So we need to, I think, really focus on in many senses, getting the basics right. It's not sophisticated, big kind of solutions and technology that we need. It is better management and the appointment of career professionals to do the jobs and not politicians.
We've had a great deal, Jackie, of briefings by the Public Works Minister, the presiding officers of Parliament, but given the importance of the institution, I wonder if there isn't a need at this point for the intelligence services to say something.
Well, the intelligence services, if you've had a look at the Mufamadi recommendations, are in an entire state of disrepair. I'm not sure that they could be of any use. I must be honest, and nobody will trust what comes from them in any case. So I would say rather keep them out of the picture, because what is needed here is good detective work. And we sometimes get a bit carried away about the importance of, for example, intelligence in the crime domain. What is necessary in the criminal domain is good detective work, crime statistics, and these kind of things, not intelligence. What South Africa has seen since, about 2009, 2010, is the abuse of the intelligence services as a pot of money to engage in factional fights within the ANC. And unless the challenges within the ANC are addressed, South Africa, frankly, is at risk. What has happened, however, since July of last year, is that the challenge that, that President Ramaphosa is probably now alive to the fact that it's not only the economy stupid, if I can coin a phrase, but it is really looking at the security agencies. South Africa is in a difficult spot, and we will need competent, capable, dedicated, loyal security agencies across the board to help us through these difficult periods with levels of unemployment, crime, and so on and so forth, particularly as we head to December 2022 with the ANC's elections, because that's really where the root of this problem lies, also in terms of a lack of accountability.
Jackie Sleers from the Institute for Security Studies, good to speak to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.